What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the podcast. Welcome in to another episode of the Triple Play Fantasy Football Show. We are a proud member of Empire Media and the Empire Media Podcast Network. D. Mendy here, joined as always by Johnny Foosball, John Van Etten. John, if I were to call you Marcel Aitman of the Triple Play Fantasy team, would you consider that an insult or a compliment?
That makes it seem like I'm on and off the roster of the show sheet an awful lot. That man has been cut and re-signed, cut and re-signed, cut and re-signed.
Hey, man, we view you as a valuable piece, which we keep bringing you back on shows. So
you're saying you're just inches away from cutting me now?
I never said that. That was your words, not mine. But happy to have you back, of course, on the show as always. Of course, also joined by another man, the kickball champion, but if they put the shift on, wouldn't get any more hits. It's the Doc, Eric Mendelson. What's going on?
You're just mad that I played better at kickball than you.
I don't know about that, but
David dropped an easy fly ball.
No, we're not even getting into that. We're not even getting into that. It's a whole discussion. The whole discussion. You throwing me off trying to catch the ball. But no Brad Stradamus tonight, but we upgraded and brought somebody even better. We welcome in a man with the best cartoon Avi in the game. The co-founder and lead analyst of Full Tilt Fantasy, the co-host of the Full Tilt Dynasty podcast, the lead analyst of RotoUnderworld. This up-and-coming law school student will blow your mind with his background in economics and offers an extremely unique market-based approach to fantasy football. The man that loves his Colts and is going through a quarterback crisis for the first time in his life. A man that is a conductor of the A.J. Brown freight train. A man that is a passion for scouting with a focus on modeling analytics and identifying under-the-radar players and prospects. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome in the sneaky athletic, beta blocker, and someone who wants you to run the damn ball. It is Mr. Sanderson, Jakob Sanderson. What's going on, man?
That is the longest intro I've ever got on a podcast in my life. Holy crap. That's some impressive stuff. Thank you, David. Holy.
Dude, man, you got an impressive resume, if I do say so myself. And breaking news today, you are now the lead analyst over at RotoUnderworld, man. You deserve it. I've seen all your work. You do great stuff. What was it like when you got the call, the email, the text, whatever it was? What were your thoughts going in your mind?
Dan, that was fun, man. I mean, like less than a year ago, I was just a dude playing fantasy, listening to podcasts like this one. And of course, listening to Matt and Nate do their great work over at RotoUnderworld. And it's been fun writing for them. It's been fun working with them and sort of working our way up to being a lead analyst over there is super, super exciting. I'm pumped to bring more and more content out there at Player Profiler. And, right now I'm just pumped to be talking the AFC West with three fine folks here tonight.
I love it, man. I love it. I have to ask you, it says in your profile that you sing karaoke.
Oh my
now,
gosh.
Did you bring your mic? Do you want to sing to us before we get started in the show?
What's the go-to song?
My go-to song at karaoke is definitely Mr. Brightside by the Killers. It's definitely not going to be sang tonight, but it's a go-to for sure. My mic tonight is going to be strictly used for talking football and whatever else comes up.
All right, I can dig it.
Emphasis on talking.
Oh, no, I was hoping you were going to sing that analysis. Well, we've got a packed show with the AFC West preview. The Triple Play Fantasy Division previews are here, and they're spectacular. And we're going to go over all 8 divisions in the NFL, our second to last one tonight being the AFC West. We're going to be looking at the rising and falling stars, rookie impacts, players to keep a sharp eye on at the end of your drafts, and of course, much more. Make sure to stay tuned for all that. After, we're going to go to our question of the week. Which quarterback in the league tips the most for haircuts? And as always, we have our game of the week revealed at the end of the show. So if you guys are ready to get another episode started, then man, we're here to do it for you. Let's do it! Yeah! Right, Doc, I think we lost you for a second. You good? No, he's not good, so I won't talk to him. Okay. So we got some news and notes we'll just touch on real quick before we jump into the AFC West here. The first bit of news here, the Cardinals running back competition might not be a competition after all, according to Adam H. Beasley of Pro Football Network, as he writes, the battle for running back may be Chase Edmonds' job to lose, as he's expected to earn the starting gig. So Jacob, I'm going to ask you, is it a 1 and 2 with him and James Conner, or is it a 1A and 1B? What do you think?
I think it's a 1 and 2. I really do. Look, James Conner, guys, he's not very good. Like, I'm sorry, but he's not. He was a mid-round pick coming out of the NFL draft. I believe he was a supplementary third-round pick, so practically a fourth-round pick. He had one very solid season with the Pittsburgh Steelers, but in my opinion, he's what I like to call a competent plotter, which is one of several running backs who's capable enough in all phases of the game that if you give him a ton of work, he's going to be great for fantasy. But I don't see him as a guy who adds a ton of value. And the NFL agreed. He signed for less money and less years at a later time than Devontae freaking Booker to be the backup for Saquon Barkley, right? He got a 1-year, $1.8 million contract. He got less than Marlon Mack off a torn Achilles. So to me, the idea that he was going to come in and be the starter in Arizona is pretty ridiculous. I think it is Chase Edmonds' job to lose. I'm not 100% convinced on Chase Edmonds. He was a really efficient running back last year, but he faced like nobody in the box. If you look at his stacked box rates, he had one of the clearest runways every time he touched the ball. And he was a guy who didn't necessarily add a lot per touch when you look at things like yards created, when you look at things like juke rate. So I'm not totally sold yet on Edmonds, and I think that Connor's a good insurance policy, but I think that's what he is. I think Edmonds is the more explosive player. He's the way better pass catcher, and he's the running back to own in Arizona.
Doc, I'll go to you next real quick because I think there's some valid points Jacob brought up. You're the Chase Edmonds truther. You've been screaming Chase Edmonds since.
Okay, can we stop saying people are truthers?
Oh, no. I have been
a fan of someone. Truther. It's absurd. You can just say he's a fan of Chase Edmonds. I don't know when this
because that's underselling
the dialogue.
That is underselling how much
my favorite
I have been.
My favorite is the truther for like elite players. It's like, man, the JT truthers are going to be upset if he isn't a top 3 back this year. It's like, who needs to be a truther for Jonathan Taylor? Like, who are the Jonathan Taylor falsers? Like, everyone knows he's good.
There needs to be around it.
Jonathan Taylor fans.
So my thought about Chase Edmonds is I don't think it's a clear 1-2 just because I don't think Chase Edmonds can be the lead back. I think it's going to be a very pass-heavy offense. I think that's why the Cardinals invested in A.J. Green. They kept Christian Kirk. They, of course, have DeAndre Hopkins. I think Chase
Rondale Moore.
Rondale Moore. I think Chase Edmonds will probably get in that 17 to 18 touch per game rather than that 13 to 14 that he's been getting. But I think that they're going to use Connor as the short yardage and goal line back. Chase Edmonds is also a free agent after this season, so I wouldn't be surprised if the Cardinals kind of did use him a little bit more if they don't intend on re-signing him. I just don't think his body of work can keep up with being a lead back, and I think the Cardinals know that too.
Unless he plays in New York, because the games against New York, he always goes off.
You know what? If you go to his Instagram, he puts it as home.
Does he really?
Yeah, it's great.
Sample size N equals 1, I think.
That's hilarious. Oh my, I love that. So there's also some other news that's not necessarily impacting fantasy that we'll touch on real quick. In light of the Barkevius Mingo arrest on the charge of stuff I don't even really want to read, the Falcons released him. He's going to spend at least 20 years in prison if convicted, so you'll never see him again. There is some news I am interested to hear your guys' thoughts on. Next year loomed to when the Washington football team would unveil its new identity, according to team president Jason Wright. He confirmed the timeline, so this is the last year of the Washington football team, but the team's keeping the burgundy and gold color for next year. Jacob, I'll go back to you. Are you sad to see this go? Do you like the Washington football team, or are you excited to see what they change it to?
Honestly, I kind of vibe with the football team. I thought it was so stupid when they announced it, and then I got hooked. I'm not going to lie. The jerseys are slick. They have this old school look, then they kind of have an old school identity, especially like we just had the Euro Cup wrap up. So everybody's kind of in a soccer frame of mind right now. That's sort of what it reminds me of, right? It's like you see, all these teams just FC, whatever. So I'm going to miss the football team, but whatever they come up with is definitely going to be an improvement upon what they were 2 years ago. So I'm excited to see it.
John, do you like it? What do you think? Do you like this old school look?
Surprised it's still taking him another year. Like, They must have really had nothing in their back pocket when this happened,
Dan Snyder's dragging his feet.
Two whole seasons they lost. They can't even trademark the Washington football team if they wanted to. It got rejected. So this is, it's just funny. Like, how does it take 2 years to come up with a name?
I'll bet you it's going to be underwhelming too, whatever they do come up with.
No, the longer it goes on, the worse the name is going to be in comparison, regardless of what it is.
That's a good point. I am interested to see what happens with it, but at least we have one more year where we get to see this. I always think it's like a college football look because like they have like just the way it looks like almost like another Alabama kind of. Like with the way the helmets look and everything.
They have the entire defense is from Alabama.
So that's true.
Yeah.
The best thing that came out of it was they like signed a player and it was like so-and-so is now a football player. And I just thought that was the best thing to come out of it.
I love that. Well, a lot of great stuff with all that stuff. But if you enjoy the content, please make sure you click that subscribe button wherever you find your podcast. And if you want to hear more Triple Play, great news for you. We have a fantasy baseball and basketball show you can check out, available anywhere you get your podcasts. If you enjoy the content, hook the boys up with a 5-star rating and review. We greatly appreciate it. Check us out on all our social media at Triple Play Fantasy. Of course, our website, tripleplayfantasy.com. You'll see tons of articles, videos, podcasts. We also have a YouTube channel we really push. John's part of the half of the movie minutes on this channel here. We've got, of course, like football breakdowns. My Jerry Jeudy's a top 24 wide receiver. We'll get to talking about that stuff later on. But remember, if you're looking for a podcast that will make you a lean, mean fantasy fighting machine. I don't think I said that right because hopefully we're not fighting machines anytime soon. Global warming isn't the biggest threat to our civilization. It's artificial intelligence. So make sure don't fight.
That's a good plug for our movie minutes of the Mitchells versus the Machines, David. Thank you.
That's
on YouTube now.
That's what I do. But if you're watching the live version, we're not going anywhere. If you're on the podcast version, we got to pay our bills, and we're going to jump into the AFC West preview right after this quick break. All right. Like a leaf on a stone statue of Ron Jeremy, we have a lot to cover. So let's.
What? Oh my gosh! You are so wild.
Let's dive in. Let's dive in. So let's talk about quarterbacks first. And let's talk about the Broncos quarterbacks. You got Teddy Bridgewater and you got Drew Lock. Teddy Bridgewater was QB 19 at just under 17 points a game. Drew Lock was quarterback 23 at around 15 points per game. We have no idea who's starting in Denver to start the season. They have arguably the Broncos have one of the most talented groups on offense and seem to be just a quarterback away from exploding. Can Drew Lock take that 3-year leap? To this point, he's averaged just 6.6 yards per attempt and 23 touchdowns and 18 interceptions in 18 career games. He's quarterback 35 right now getting drafted. Or will it be Teddy Bridgewater? He takes care of the football, distributes to his playmakers quickly. He can keep the offense on pace. He's right now actually going QB 37, 2 spots behind Drew Lock. So, Jacob, I know this is more of a Nostradamus trying to look into the future here, but which quarterback do you think is the week 1 starter? And do you think there's any fantasy relevance to him?
Yeah, I think that the fantasy relevance is strictly confined to 2 QB superflex leagues, no matter who starts. So I want to be clear on that. I don't see a whole lot of fantasy upside here. And I certainly don't see any fantasy safety here. I think that they would like Drew Lock to be the starter. I think that that's the guy that they drafted. That's the guy who theoretically has more upside. We have a pretty large sample now of Teddy Bridgewater as an NFL starting quarterback, going back from Minnesota to the 5-game stint in New Orleans. And of course, last year he was in Carolina in what was really quite a good situation for a quarterback to succeed in, with DJ Moore, Robbie Anderson, Curtis Samuel, Joe Brady as the OC. And he is what he is at this point. I think he's an average to slightly below average league starter. He can conduct a competent offense, but this isn't a guy who's going to take any team to the next level. If the term game manager means anything, it means Teddy Bridgewater. So I think they would like it to be Drew Lock. I think Drew Lock will get the week 1 start. I just see this as kind of a scenario. It reminds me almost to Josh Rosen 2 years ago with the Dolphins, where, that was the guy with the theoretical upside, but he just wasn't the guy. And I just don't think Drew Lock's the guy. He was not a particularly accurate or efficient quarterback for most of his college career. he was really drafted on behalf of these traits, and he just hasn't grown in the NFL. You know, we've seen flashes at times, but it seems like every time he takes one step forward, the next week he takes 2 steps back, and while he's stepping backward, he's throwing right off of that back foot, usually into double coverage. So I just can't with Drew Lock. This team is set up too well. That's the thing. If this team was bad, if this team had a first-year head coach, I could easily see a scenario where they make this let's just see what happens with Drew Lock this year. Maybe like Philly with Jalen Hurts, right? But this team is loaded, man. I mean, they traded up for a running back, right? That's a win now move. They got 2 phenomenal wide receivers. They've got a defense that's going to be back to health. And they got Vic Fangio, who in my opinion is coaching for his job. So I just think that the leash is going to be so tight on Drew Lock. If he doesn't come out gunning, then Bridgewater is going to be going in right away, because at least he's not going to lose them games.
Now, do you think, because I saw this actually, JJ Zacharyson brought this up, do you think that a certain player is more tied to a quarterback? Like Drew Lock starting means that Cortland Sutton's going to get more looks because he's more of a downfield thrower, and that Teddy Bridgewater likes those short intermediate routes, which Jerry Jeudy, of course, winning off the line as much as he does, might get more looks from Bridgewater. Do you think that a quarterback is tied more to a receiver?
Yeah, I get that argument. I do. And I can see why people think that a Jerry Jeudy would be better for Teddy because he's more of that natural separator. But at the end of the day, I think that, ultimately it comes more down to the talent of the wide receiver, and it comes down to the efficiency of the offense. So I think this offense would be better with Teddy Bridgewater than it would be with Drew Lock. And so thus, I think both Cortland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy would be better with Teddy Bridgewater than with Drew Lock. But I could see a world in which, Teddy enjoys throwing to the Jerry Jeudy route tree, more often than the Sutton route tree for sure.
Okay. I want to touch another quarterback in this division that's not a sexy name either by any means, if we're talking about unsexy quarterbacks, and that's Derek Carr, who
he's got the eyeliner.
Have you ever seen his eyes?
What, David?
Yeah,
exactly. The eyeliner. Talking about not sexy.
I should say his play.
Looks like he cuts his own hair and puts on his own eyeliner. Not sexy.
So he was quarterback 13, around 17.5 points per game last year, which is actually higher than I think a lot of people thought that he was actually that high. But over the last 2 years under John Gruden, he's played 32 games, and in those games, he's delivered quarterback 1 type performances just 14 times in those 32 games. He lacks upside, but can give you that steady floor as probably a high-end QB2, which is great, obviously, for those super flex leagues. So, John, can he be more than that? Because right now he's being drafted as quarterback 24, according to
he's way better than quarterback 24. It's like I said before the show, somehow people have forgotten the Raiders went 8-8, and everybody has in their mind that they're a 3-14 team. Look at me already switching to the 17-game season. I'm already wrapped in on that. But what's not to like? He's got Waller still. He's got, and people can say, oh, they changed the wide receivers. He lost Aguilar. He made Aguilar in a sense. If you go back 2 years ago before Carr helped him break out, people would say John Brown's probably better than Nelson Aguilar. So possible upgrade. You get a possible upgrade in Henry Ruggs getting a full season under his belt finally and being healthy. Bryan Edwards can break out. Kenyon Drake just adds versatility out of the backfield for any sort of passing that is, everybody's hate on Josh Jacobs is his pass catching. So now they have a back out of the backfield. And Derek Carr's steadily improved every year under John Gruden, much like the team. So I certainly think he's a sort of a low-end QB1. QB 24 is outrageous.
So where would you rank him?
Fan?
Yeah.
Okay, I can tell. You love these guys. You're just like Henry Ruggs, Hall of Fame, Kenyon Drake, Charlie Garner, John Gruden, Coach of the Year.
Don't get him started on Zay Jones.
What did he lose that makes people think he'll drop 11 spots on the QB?
An offensive line?
His skill.
That offensive line, quote unquote, the magic offensive line that they lost, played 3 whole snaps together. They may have lost a potential production, but that whole offensive line only played 3 snaps together. So they didn't actually lose too much.
Well, I mean, it's going to be, I love that they're in the Chiefs division to feed on them. But yeah, I think the Raiders are most likely probably a 500 team. I think that's what most people would expect, best case scenario. But it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. We're going to talk about those skill position players later on, of course. Doc, while we still have you, why don't you tell us about this Chargers team and Justin Herbert, who was quarterback 9 at just under 23 points per game. He broke out in the rookie season, actually set a rookie record for passing touchdowns with 31, while throwing 595 pass attempts, the 4th most in the league. Again, with all that, he still finished as quarterback 9. He's right now going as quarterback 7. How do you feel about him, Doc? I think he's definitely, I've seen the Herbie believers. I've seen everybody likes to pump up Justin Herbert. I'm a little bit more down on Herbert than I think consensus are. Where do you stand on Justin Herbert this year?
So you commented on one of my posts that apparently don't get a lot of interaction, saying that you think he's going to be outside the top 12.
No, I said he would be quarterback 11.
Okay. I don't have him outside the top 10.
Such a bold take by David to pretend, he's outside the top 10 at 11.
I mean, you got to reel him in. That's reel him in.
Herbert has an army, man. If you say one bad thing about that guy, like, you're going to be canceled. QB 11 is as low as you can go.
So here's my thing is, and David brought up a lot of points that he had the 4th most passing attempts. Austin Eckler was injured last year, so I think there was a little bit more reliance on him. Also with game script as well. I look at the first 9 weeks he started. 8 of those 9 games, he scored over 20 fantasy points. Then you look at the last 6 weeks, only 2 out of the 6 he scored over 20 points. And one of those was week 17 against Kansas City backups. So I think teams started to have a little bit more film on him. I also look at his rushing upside. He had 234 rushing yards and 5 rushing touchdowns, which I think is a little bit of an anomaly considering he never had more than 183 rushing yards in college. And figure you're playing against worse athletes. He also had the benefit of Keenan Allen and Mike Williams being healthy. Keenan Allen's been healthy the last couple of years, but him and Mike Williams are both prone to missing some time. So I'm with you. I think in that QB 9 to 10 range, I can't have him as high as others do.
Jacob,
don't come for me. Don't cancel me.
Yeah. Jacob, I want to go back to you. So it seems like you're kind of on that camp too. Where do you have Justin Herbert ranked?
Yeah, I have Herbert. I believe I have him at QB 9 right now. I'm fine with Herbert for the most part where he goes. He was going ahead of Russell Wilson earlier this season. I thought that was absolutely bananas. Doesn't make any sense to me. I would take Jalen Hurts ahead of him too in a redraft format. I mean, Jalen Hurts is probably going to run for like 900 yards if he plays the whole season, maybe 1,200 yards. Gosh, I don't know. I don't understand how Herbert's going to make that up with passing. So with Justin Herbert, I view him more in the tier with Joe Burrow, Matt Stafford, Tom Brady, Ryan Tannehill. If someone thinks that he's the best of that tier, I'm not going to argue with that. But I think that's more where he belongs and not sort of in this middle tier with Dak and Russ Wilson and Jalen Hurts. I just don't see it. I think that this defense is going to be so much better this year. They have a lot of talent. They were very injured the last 2 years. And I think that's going to be an improvement. The thing that I do think Herbert has going for him is this is an offense that's still probably going to pass the ball at a really high rate, at least on early downs. Their feature running backs, Austin Eckler, that's not a guy you want to give 20 carries up the gut to. That's a guy you want to use out in space. And I don't really know who else they have that's going to fulfill that early down grinder role. Like Josh Kelly, that guy was a total piece of crap last year. Larry Roundtree, like I don't have any takes on Larry Roundtree. So I'll do, I like Herbert, fine, but I think he's more low end QB1. I don't see like the top 3 upside.
For this sake, we're not going to get into the taste. We know that John goes on tangents when we hear the.
He's 32 already or something outrageous. He's like 32 or 34. I don't know how he became a up and comer at that age, but
Yeah, but
it's like Brandon Whedon all over again.
Oh God, that's a name. But for going back to Justin Herbert, though, I couldn't agree more with what you're saying, Jacob. If I'm on the same page with the lead fantasy analyst for RotoUnderworld, I'm doing something right. So very many of the same points you said. Also, they have a defensive
You all
minded head
will
coach.
be laughing when he throws for 5,000 yards and gets all those Accutane ad money, and you'll be seeing his face every day.
Yeah,
he probably will throw for 5,000 yards. But like Tom Brady last year threw for 4,700 yards and 40 touchdowns, and I believe he was the QB 11 in points per game. Yeah. So, like, if Herbert doesn't match 5 rushing touchdowns again, which I don't know, maybe, but I don't think that that's something we should be betting on, then I think that's what he is. He's a low-end QB1.
I agree with you 100% on that same page. Let's bring up real quick. He has the best hair in the division. Yeah, he does. I will give him that. He does. But Patrick Mahomes real quick. He was QB4 last year, only played in 15 games. If he played that 16th game, he would have been QB1. He was also QB1.
He was QB1 points per game, right? He was
QB1 in points per game. I guess this is an important question.
Look, Dustin, I mean, I love his hair. And it's very clear last year if you look at the game splits, right? If you ever go on, one of those RotoViz tools, do the in split, out split, right? When he had the flow, he was QB1. When he took away the flow, he was chucking picks, not rushing for touchdowns. So the flow correlation is real. If he keeps the hair up all year, that's where the top 5 upside comes from.
No, I agree. I mean, he's growing the hair back out, which is good too. And Derek Carr cuts his hair, shaves his head, so there's no flow there to go for that. Do we have to really analyze Patrick Mahomes? He's probably at worst. He's a top 2 quarterback consensus.
Yeah, I mean, he's right up there with Geno Smith. I think if Geno Smith had Eric Bieniemy, he would be there with Patrick Mahomes.
They're very much haters on this show because I'm a Chiefs fan, so they're very much like to talk about.
It's so nice you got a fan of the AFC South in here to come be objective instead of these Raiders fans trying to tear you down.
That's right. Yeah, we're linking up together. We're taking down the people that are trying to take our teams down here. So let's talk about some running backs now. And I got to start off here with the Melvin Gordon, Javonte Williams backfield. Melvin Gordon was RB14 last year, just over 13 points per game. He's right now going as RB25. Those 16.5 touches per game we saw last year obviously look like to be a thing of the past. He's already suspended 1 game, it looks like, but it could be more for the DUI incident if I'm not mistaken. The risk is obviously there. Melvin Gordon also only has 1 year left on his deal, but this is the same coaching staff that brought him in. And they also now brought in Javonte Williams, which is he taking the Phillip Lindsay role? Is he going to win this job? And then Melvin Gordon shifts into the Phillip Lindsay role. Jacob, you got to help us out here, man. What are we doing with these 2 guys?
Dude, there's something weird in the water over there with the Melvin Gordon situation. I mean, every other time you see a running back drafted early, other than like, I guess, a Najee Harris situation where there's literally nobody else. But for the most part, if there's a somewhat decent incumbent, right, as soon as the guy gets drafted early, all we hear from the organization is how much they still love the guy they have, how much they support him, how he's going to have a huge season, right? Like they even pretended that with Damian Williams last year before he opted out. They're like, he's going to have a breakout year. With Melvin, it's like, you wouldn't know that Melvin Gordon is a Denver Bronco if you listen to their beat reports, if you listen to the team. They just have no time for the guy. It seems like they brought him into big contract last year. He showed up to camp out of shape. He was pretty mediocre last year as a running back. Like he was fine, but I don't think he fully lived up to the expectations that they had. He has a DUI issue off the field. George Patton comes in this year, first year as a GM. First thing he does, he signs Mike Boone, first player he signed from his old spot in Minnesota that he signed as a UDFA. Then not only does he take Javonte Williams, he trades up to go and get Javonte Williams. It's a pretty big statement. The statement says we have no interest in playing Melvin Gordon. So I don't think he's cut because there's a dead cap situation there. But I think that they would be perfectly happy to trade him if they could find the taker. And I think Javonte Williams is going to be clearly the lead back. And I think that if they found a situation where Melvin Gordon wasn't a part of their plans and they rolled with Javonte, Mike Boone, and Royce Freeman, I think that they're pretty content to do that. I really don't see that they have a lot of ties to Melvin Gordon right now, personally.
Bro, tell us how you really feel about him.
Dude, the guy's pretty washed. I think that's how I feel about him.
So someone actually brought up today, I was guesting on a pod earlier, and they said, why can Melvin Gordon not be traded to Atlanta? And I was like, that literally makes so much sense. Like him going to Atlanta, I don't know their cap situation, or I don't know.
Well, it's a little bit, I don't see the Atlanta one because they had to trade Julio Jones. Well, he wanted to trade too, but like one of the reasons why they traded Julio Jones, I think, is because they were in cap hell. They couldn't even sign their rookies. They would have to inherit some cap with Melvin. I'm not sure how much, but I can see it. I mean, I think Melvin's best case scenario is on another team for fantasy.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's only a matter of time. Javonte Williams was my favorite prospect coming into this rookie class coming in. I actually liked him more than Najee Harris. He led FBS in broken tackles last year. It wasn't just that game against Miami, which everybody sees. I really like him as a prospect, and I think he's going to have that job sooner rather than later. And I think as fantasy season or the drafts have been kind of rolling on later and later, he's getting bumped up slowly and slowly and slowly. In my Scott Fishbowl draft, he went actually the 4th round. So,
oh my gosh,
yeah,
wow!
People really are starting. People are really bumping him up. So by August, we might even have more clarity on that situation. So we'll keep an eye out for that. Doc, I'm going to go to you next. Let's talk about the Chargers here. Let's talk about Austin Eckler. Of course, we're an Austin Eckler podcast, friend of the show. I can still do more pull-ups than him. But Austin Eckler, he's back. He's healthy. He said as so on the show he was healthy. You have Austin Eckler, who's RB26, but he was RB11 in points per game, 16.5. And in 8 full games with Justin Herbert under center last year, Eckler saw 63 targets, which at least for 16 games would have been 126 targets. So over 17, that's going to be over 130 targets for the season. That puts him in the CMC and Alvin Kamara type of class as far as pass catchers out of the backfield are concerned. If he gets anywhere near 200 carries, could he be a high-end RB1 in PPR formats? Doc, what do you think about our guy Eckler? Where should he be going?
So last season, Austin Eckler played 10 games, amazingly came back quicker from that torn quad than expected. He had 170 touches in those 10 games, averaging about 17 a game. I'd expect closer to that 2019 when Melvin Gordon was out the first 4 games when he averaged close to 20 touches per game. So figure maybe 14 carries, 6 or 7 receptions. He is in the second year of a 4-year extension he signed. So I don't think they're going to give him a bell cow role. We had mentioned Joshua Kelly's butt, and he is, but he also got 111 carries last year. And if Justin Jackson stays on the team, he had 59 carries last year, averaging 4.6 yards per carry. I don't think it's a Saquon Barkley situation where he's the clear-cut every down back, but I do think he's going to have a lot of touches through the air, through the ground, certainly helping his role in PPR.
Yeah, I mean, he's a PPR darling. I'm keeping an eye on Larry Roundtree. I think he could be someone sneaky. Justin Jackson, they said, might not even make the roster, and we saw what Joshua Kelly did last year. I'm keeping an eye on that, but Austin Eckler, very much a slam dunk in PPR formats, is probably in the top 10 in most people's PPR rankings. Mm-hmm. Johnny, let's talk about the Raiders. Let's talk about Josh Jacobs. Let's talk about Kenyon Drake, who Josh Jacobs was RB8 last year at 15.4 points per game. And Kenyon Drake was RB16 at 12.8 points per game. Again, this is PPR formats. The Raiders decided to pay Kenyon Drake a good chunk of money to come in and share the workload with Jacobs, forcing his fantasy stock to somewhat plummet. Seems like he's available in some 5th and 6th rounds and some drafts that I've been seeing. Now Drake has been called essentially the same running back. They both don't seem to produce too much in the passing game, very much ball carriers. You have to think Jalen Richard might factor in there as the 3rd down pass catcher potentially. What do you feel about this? Is a lot of confusion with this backfield right now. Do you avoid it if you're drafting?
No, I think it's not. To make a strong comparison, it's a little bit of a Chubb Hunt light combination where at the worst you get a good second piece and a good handcuff. I mean, I do think for Jacobs, it's going to be a less is more situation. He'll get less touches, but as the season wore on and as the game wears on, he gets less and less effective because he had such a large amount of touches. So I think it's a less is more where it sort of balances out the lack of touches where he's more efficient in the touches he does get. Kenyon Drake, I'm hearing he's going to be a threat in the passing game. He's saying he might go out wide sometimes. So check your facts, David, on that one. And then Jalen Richard is going to be a non-factor. That's very clearly why they brought Kenyon Drake in, to have an actual backup to share the workload. And I really think a lot of people, again, we already touched on the offensive line, are worried about it. But like I said, they only played 3 snaps together, this magical offensive line that everybody thinks the Raiders demolished. So they loaded up on Leatherwood, who, if you think he's a bad pick, you think he's a bad pick, but he did grade out to be a good run blocker. So he's got that going for him, and Jacobs has that going for him.
Jalen Richard could also be suspended for a game because he's an anti-vaxxer, so if he doesn't comply.
He is an anti-vaxxer.
Jalen Richard's like an anti-touching the football field this year. He's a non-entity. Not going to happen. I don't even know why we're talking about Jalen Richard. But I don't know. I mean, my issue is the difference between Chubb and Hunt and Jacobs Drake is that, first of all, Chubb and Hunt are exceptionally great at football, and Jacobs and Drake are not that. I think Jacobs is fine, but like, he was an overdrafted prospect coming out of Alabama. He was a split backfield guy, didn't put up incredible stats at Alabama, didn't put up, I don't know, like, there's this narrative where film guys for like, this guy can run some real crisp routes, so he's this pass down wonder kind. He didn't like produce much as a pass catcher in college. I don't really know where that narrative came from, but it certainly has not manifested in the NFL other than one extremely magical game against the Carolina Panthers in week 1 last year when it looked like he was going to be the RB1 overall. I think Jacobs is fine. I think he's gotten to the point now where his value is actually what it should be. I usually avoid running backs like Jacobs, the competent plotter category as a guy who runs a 4.69. But he's going now in round 5, round 6. I think that's fine. I think he gives you a totally fine floor. Devontae Booker got more touches than people seem to remember last year. And Kenyon Drake could have a meaningful role by pretty much just walking into the Devontae Booker role with maybe a little bit more pass catching. I'm certainly not a Drake guy. He creates nothing. Like, he has some juice, and if you give him a free lane to run, he can do it. But in terms of a guy who's creating yardage on his own, especially for a team that's going to have a pretty inexperienced offensive line, God, I don't understand.
It's good the fantasy points then are not for yards created on your own.
Well, that's true. I just say I don't think he's very good at football. Like, people, like, I don't think Josh.
You don't seem to think anybody's very good at football. I'm going to
not on the
honest.
Raiders.
This is one of the more negative takes I've seen. A team that went 8-8 doesn't have any good football players. It's a natural reaction.
There's no.
Yeah, they had Nelson Aguilar. He's a great football player. He's for the Patriots now. I think
he
Josh
wasn't great. He wasn't great until last year.
I think Josh Jacobs is fine. Like, I don't think he's exceptional, but I think he's a totally fine running back. I think he's a good between the tackles running back. I don't think Kenyon Drake is. I also don't really think he's that great in the passing game, but the Raiders do. So if the Raiders want to use him that way, then he's going to get used that way.
I want to talk about a running back that's been kind of polarizing. The last one in this division, that's Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I have a spiel. I already made a thread about him. I'm trying to make sure we don't go over too much time here. So Clyde Edwards-Helaire, I think, will be a top 10 PPR back. He's been getting inflated a bunch in fantasy circles now. I think he was disrespected a little bit earlier this offseason. It's been shown that, according to ESPN Analytics Index, that the Chiefs' offensive line had a 67% offensive run block win rate, which was 31st in the NFL. People point that he couldn't score from in close inside the 5. He was 2 out of 10 inside the 5, but the rest of the running backs combined were 1 out of 6. So it's not really a Clyde Edwards-Helaire problem as far as him not getting in the end zone. They added Orlando Brown, Joe Thuney, who's been one of the best guards in the NFL, Kyle Long, Creed Humphrey, they drafted out of Oklahoma, Austin Blythe, who was the center for the Rams last year, the starting center. They're getting back Laurent Duvernay-Tardif and Lucas Niang, both offensive linemen, good offensive linemen that didn't play last year. So they have a whole new offensive line that's going to contribute. Andy Reid's history of running backs, he's had a top 24 PPR running back in 13 of the last 17 seasons that he's coached. The floor is there, excuse me. And the last thing I'll point out, before Le'Veon Bell joined the fold, he was averaging 18 carries a game, 5 targets, and 110 yards per game. Those numbers plummeted when Bell joined. But as far as touches went, he only trailed Mixon, Zeke, and Derrick Henry with more touches than him the first 6 weeks of the year. Elijah McGuire and Jerick McKinnon are the only two running back additions there. So I do think some positive regression in the touchdown department. I think he's going to be used more in the receiving game this year. He has a full normal offseason to process the complicated playbook. That is Andy Reid's playbook. I do think that he is going to make a leap this year. Top 10 PPR back.
And can you call it regression if it's just the second data point, David, of 2-season career? Is it regressing to anything if he's just got one data point?
I guess it's like a weird term or weird bad way to put it, but I do think that the touchdowns, with the amount of times he was given the ball inside the 10, he's not going to convert 2 out of 10 this year. If he gets 10 touches inside the 5, I would expect that maybe
I'm not saying I disagree with you, but I just love how we run with our own narratives where one player could only score a touchdown twice out of 10 touches and he could be a bad running back. But this guy that I like, he's going to regress and do better next year.
Well,
I don't think like that red zone conversion rate is like a particularly good reason to ever say someone's a bad running back, right? Like Nick Chubb 2 years ago was like the worst goal to go back in the entire NFL, and he might be the best running back in the entire NFL.
Yeah, and I think it all comes down to the narrative of like, hey, do you think that the team is going to be like, hey, they're not converting, we're going to punch it in with somebody else, like that? Right. They're going to
throw Big Daryl.
Yeah, he was the only one. He was the only one that scored last year, but the rest of them were 1 out of 6. So like, it's an offensive line problem. They RGM really fixed that. It's something that was needed to be addressed, and it was addressed. So I do think he's going to take a leap. I have him only behind Jonathan Taylor in terms of second-year running backs this year.
It's going to go to the always healthy Jerick McKinnon.
No, I have him over Cam and Swift. And
Okay, Swift is fine. I have Swift higher, but I think they have him like virtually tied. Over Cam is absolutely redonkulous to me. I mean, yeah, both of them are going to be in high octane offenses, right? I'm sure obviously I'd take the Chiefs offense over the Rams, but I think that they're both going to be top 5 offenses this year, or at least top 10. And one of those teams actually likes running the ball, and the other doesn't. Like the Rams, every single year except for 2019, the Rams have been one of the top 10 rushing teams in the NFL since Sean McVay got there. The Chiefs, they don't need anything dynamic in the run game. Like they have the offense runs through Hill, it runs through Kelsey. I like Clyde this year. I think he has a really good shot at being an RB1. I think he's a better player than most people think. So I'm not trying to be as negative as I was in the previous segment. But once he said he's going to be behind Cam Akers, now I've lost the plot. Cam Akers had a more impressive receiving profile overall in college in terms of his market share than even Clyde Edwards-Helaire did, who got his gross numbers really boosted because they threw at a ridiculous rate at LSU that final year. But Cam Akers is a totally competent receiving back. They both struggled in pass blocking last year, but Cam also comes in with, a lot of juice. As a 4.47 guy, elite speed score, and he's quite big. He has the bell cow size. Clyde Edwards-Helaire can be profiled as a satellite back plus. I think that's totally fine in this offense because he can be a guy who takes on 14, 15 carries, add in 5 targets. And he's probably going to be efficient in this offense. I think he can be quite good as a low-end RB1, but not a chance in hell I would take him over Cam Akers, who, in my opinion, has just far higher upside as a true bell cow profile.
Jacob, let's make a bet on air. Whoever finishes higher in PPR, they have to play a minimum of, let's say, 12 games.
Sure.
The other person gets to choose their profile picture of the other for 2 weeks.
For 2 weeks? Oh, my gosh. This is funny because I think I have Cam Akers involved in pretty much all of my bets. So, sure, I'm in for that.
All right, Darrell Henderson, come and win that job.
Yeah, it all depends on which Darrell ends up getting more touches.
I didn't even realize. Yeah, the same name. That's actually pretty funny. Let's quickly touch the pass catchers. I want to just go to the Raiders first, John, because there's not much to talk about outside of Darren Waller. Darren Waller was the tight end 2 last year at 17.4 points per game. Scored 9 touchdowns last year after 3 in 2019. Same offense. The one thing I will point out is the Raiders led the NFL in tight end percentage of targets. Is he still your firm tight end 2 behind Kelsey?
Easily, yeah. And he's certainly the number 1 option there. And I think you underrate Ruggs a little bit, David. You remember him from the Chiefs game. I'm just saying, he's shown flashes. He has a full offseason.
Do you?
I think you underrate him at your own peril.
David watches Henry Ruggs every time he watches a Chiefs game with Mecole Hardman.
That's true. Yeah, it's like a carbon copy.
Same guy.
John, is there anybody worth rostering outside Darren Waller in terms of you're going to draft and make sure you get a bunch of them?
Henry Ruggs. He's literally just had Derek Carr just had an interview where he said something clicked. And Derek Carr is a quarterback who has been known to lock in on his receivers. Aguilar a little bit last year, obviously Waller last year. But if he starts to like him and he starts to feel confident, he's going to be throwing him passes. And he has shown he can catch it. I mean, the Jets may have made an awful call, but he still had to beat his man.
That's true.
Congratulations, Henry Ruggs. You were able to catch a wide open 40-yard bomb on a night.
He still had to beat his man, is what I'm saying. It's not, players don't quit games. The coaching may have, but the cornerback across from him was still trying to play defense.
Stop. That's still a sensitive subject. Some of us lost bets because of that.
You bet on the Jets?
No, I bet on the over-under.
Okay.
Oh, man.
I was like, if you bet on the Jets, that's a you problem.
Nah.
Doc,
it was a trap game, though.
Doc, let's go to you. Keenan Allen, wide receiver 13 last year, around 17.5 points per game. He was 5th in the NFL in targets. He seems to be locked in with Justin Herbert. He was his go-to receiver, targeting him 10 separate times, 10 or more targets. Do you have him sneaking in the wide receiver 1 conversation, or is he a high-end safe floor, high-end wide receiver 2? And what do you think about Mike Williams? Is Mike Williams worth this hype that everybody's talking about right now?
So Keenan Allen, I think, is a low-end wide receiver 1 just because of the volume that he's going to be getting. When Keenan Allen
had more than 8 touchdowns in a season.
Yeah, I mean, 8 touchdowns is better than DJ Moore's 4 that he gets.
That's true.
So I think Keenan Allen, you lock in as a low-end wide receiver 1 because of the volume he'll get. Mike Williams is interesting because he actually played 15 games last year and had 85 targets. So not a really impressive target share. Hunter Henry actually had more targets with 93, playing only 12 games. So those 93 targets are going to be vacant. Now, Jared Cook is coming in. I think he's more of a red zone threat. The past 2 years, 13.8 and 11.7% of his catches have been touchdowns. I think a name to watch is Jalen Guyton. He had 55 targets, which was third amongst the wide receivers on that team. And if Mike Williams or Keenan Allen miss some time, he moves into that wide receiver 2 role in what we think could be a pass-heavy offense.
All right, I like it. The X receiver, Mike Williams, as everybody's calling him now.
Yeah, it's like people just learned what X receiver means. I don't understand. Like, yeah, he's been playing X the whole time. Like, that hasn't changed. Okay, this is the last negative take I'll have, and then I promise I'm only going to spew positivity. Like, Mike Williams, his ADP rise absolutely blows my mind. I don't understand. This guy has not been a volume receiver at any point in his career since coming into the NFL. He's mostly looked like a bust. Last year, he had legitimately 4 good games for fantasy, and 2 of those came
it's the highlight reel.
Yeah,
literally,
and
people put his highlight reel on Twitter. Others retweet it. They get really hyped up, and they don't look at the stats. They just look at these amazing catches. That's why his ADP is going up.
Right, and they aren't like his good games aren't actually that great. It's just like he catches his usual passes caught are like 3, but then sometimes he gets 4 or 5. And then sometimes one of them is a long touchdown, and it looks cool. And 2 of those 4 games was when Keenan Allen was hurt. So he was in the same offense last year with Justin Herbert. And Justin Herbert had a fantastic season that we all agreed he might even regress from. Of course, it's year 2, so I guess we can't say regress, but he might be worse than. And Mike Williams was mostly bad. So I think that he's going to be mostly bad again this year. I was fine with him when he was, being drafted in round 9, 10. He's being shot up into round 7 now in best ball drafts. I'm not about that life. I would much rather have Tyler Boyd. I'd rather have Curtis Samuel. I'd rather have Antonio Brown, to be quite honest. Keenan Allen, he rocks. So nothing but positive things to say about Keenan Allen. And by the way, just so I can say something positive about a Raider, I just want to say quickly, I absolutely love Bryan Edwards. Fantastic prospect. I personally am far more into Bryan Edwards than I am into Henry Ruggs, which I know is like the classic nerd take. So I'm in lockstep there with the rest of my people. But I think Bryan Edwards has a potential to have a really good season with the Raiders for pretty much similar reasons really to the Henry Ruggs case, which is that other than Waller, there's no one there who you can fully count on.
I like it. Well, I have Jonathan Taylor ranked as my RB11, just so you know.
Outside the top 10 is what David will
No, I was just thinking if I could get him to spew. I actually don't. I was just trying to see if I could get him to say something negative.
You know what? It's just like, I think it's good for every analyst to be egregiously wrong sometimes so they can learn more from their mistakes.
No, I love it. I would never rank him that low. I don't have my rankings in front of me, but I'm pretty sure I have him like right around the top, like in the 5-ish range there.
That's a good spot.
So I'll talk about the Chiefs real quick, and then I think the Broncos are the most interesting in this division to talk about here. So the Chiefs, I feel like Tyreek Hill. Most people in redraft don't have, regardless of format, I don't think have him lower than 2. Is that fair to say? He's a beast. Travis Kelce.
He's just got to stay away from his own child and a pregnant ex-girlfriend.
God, the hate is
Then he's in the clear, David. Then he's in the clear.
Mahomes needs to do like Brady with AB and just have Tyreek Hill live at his house away from possibilities for felonies.
He does. Obviously Tyreek Hill, 10 plus targets in 7 different games. He's a beast. You got Travis Kelce, tight end, won by 34 points, and he actually missed a game last year too. So, both studs. Mecole Hardman, I think, is kind of interesting. He was the wide receiver 61 last year. He's seen fewer than 5 targets in 11 of 16 games last year. Sammy Watkins is gone. People think he's going to step in. I'm not too sure about that. I'm not a Mecole Hardman guy.
Oh, thank
to
God.
be honest. I think the name to watch actually is Byron Pringle. And I think he's the one that's going to, they just signed a restricted free agent tender. It's not like a ton of money, but $2.1 million for a guy that's pretty much a special teamer. I do think they see something in him. He's a very trusted target of Mahomes. He threw him on a lot of third downs. And he's somebody that I think with Mecole Hardman not getting the trust of Mahomes pretty much called him out in the Super Bowl without using his name. I think that chemistry isn't there. So
David,
Byron Pringle is the name to watch.
I think you missed something in the news and notes about Frank Clark, though. Should we go back to that segment?
Yes,
and then
thank
I'll
you.
bring it up
I knew
next
that
time.
David missed it.
I will bring it up next time. Yeah,
Oh,
Frank Clark
man.
looks like he's a POS, but we'll talk that another
Oh, we've
time.
been saying that.
We've been new. We've
I
been
never.
new.
When did I ever say he wasn't?
Wait,
He's good
there's a
football player.
Chiefs player who wasn't really all that moral?
No, whenever we would
Because
bring
they
this
go
up,
see
David,
what I deal
Nobody
with.
says anything about the Chiefs organization.
Jacob seeing what I deal with on a weekly basis.
David would say, all these other teams employ people like this. Why are the Chiefs anything special?
Okay, well, let's talk about the Broncos real quick because we're on. We got to get the Super Fantasy Bros are going on in 15 minutes. So let's talk about Cortland Sutton. Let's talk about Jerry Jeudy and Noah Fant. Sutton obviously only played one game. Jerry Jeudy, an up and down rookie season. I'm not going to read all the stuff I wrote about him. Noah Fant, tight end 9 last year. Jacob, what do you see from these guys in the passing game next year?
Gosh, I really wish that the Broncos would just get a freaking quarterback. It aggravates me so much. Every year they just keep drafting more wide receivers that I love. They have more now than they can even play on the field at one time. It's pretty absurd. It's not like they just have Sutton and Jeudy and Fant. They even have KJ Hamler as a rookie I really liked coming out. They went and got Seth Williams late this year, who I had as a sleeper going into the draft. And no one can throw any of these guys the ball. So that's pretty frustrating. I think I like Sutton the best. He's the guy where I think he requires volume to succeed the least, just because he can deliver those splash plays down the field. And so in an offense where I think it's going to be pretty hard to establish more than a target share in the low 20s, just because of him and Jeudy and Fant all earning a lot of targets, I'm probably most intrigued by Sutton. Jeudy, I think he got a bad rap his rookie year. People act like he was awful. He wasn't awful. It was just an incredible rookie class coming in. And Jerry Jeudy was actually pretty productive. He dropped a lot of balls, whatever. Anyone who watched him play college knew that the guy holds his hands like a complete whack job. The guy was always going to drop a lot of balls. He does all sorts of weird machinations, but he still gets hope and he still separates. He's still productive. He's probably going to keep dropping balls, and he's probably going to be pretty good anyways. I like Sutton a little more. Just, we sort of got a chance to see each of them operate as the clear wide receiver one in this offense the last 2 years. Sutton really crowded out the volume in a more impressive way to me than Jerry Jeudy did. So I think Sutton's the 1A and Judy's the 1B. But if Jeudy takes a big step forward, it wouldn't totally surprise me to see that the other way. I absolutely love Noah Fant, one of my favorite tight end prospects this decade, or in the last 10 years, I should say. This decade's like 1 year old. But I really love Noah Fant. I don't know how he's going to see more than 80 to 90 targets in this offense, especially with other ancillary pieces probably working their way in. But, he's a guy at tight end. He's one of the few at tight end that can actually give you a 40-yard touchdown, right? So Noah Fant's a guy, even if unlimited volume. I would still take Noah Fant over Tyler Higbee, who's going ahead of him in best ball right now. I think Fant's much closer to Goddard than their ADPs indicate. I think Fant can do a lot with a little, so I'm still into him this year.
Top 7 tight end, top 6 that you feel comfortable with that for him?
Yeah, I'll go 7. I think there's the clear top 5. And then, I guess top 6. Some people like Mark Andrews. I kind of don't, but whatever.
I don't either.
I think Fant and Andrews and Goddard to me form kind of the third tier of tight ends. I don't understand why people are drafting Tyler Higbee. I don't understand why they did it last year. They're doing it again. I don't know. He doesn't exist to me, but with his kind of moral character, actually, he should probably wind up on the Kansas City Chiefs.
Oh,
Woo!
no.
Woo!
You're not supposed to be taking shots at my Chiefs. I get enough.
Well, I feel bad for Johnny. I've been beating up on the Raiders. The difference between the Chiefs and the Raiders, I guess there's 2, right? One is Johnny's like, what do you mean we have bad players? You went 8-8. That's pretty good. Whereas, the Chiefs get upset when they lose in the Super Bowl. And then the other difference, of course, is that the Chiefs just employ a team full of felons. So
The Chiefs employ what people think the Raiders did in the 90s. It's absurd.
We kick off the people like Kareem Hunt, so we have some morals.
Oh,
So-
kick
Yeah,
off.
once
That was
the
awesome.
video
Wow.
comes out,
You
once the video comes out,
Look, we
the
Frank Clark might
Chiefs are
even
the
be there.
Jailblazers of the early 2000s.
Oh, that's a good reference.
At least they have some solid coaching around to really make sure everybody is on the straight and narrow.
I've had enough of hearing you two talk about my favorite team. So let's transition to our question of the week, which is, of course, sponsored by Monkey Knife Fight. Oh, yeah. Monkey Knife Fight is the official affiliate. Monkey Knife Fight is the... God, look at me. I can't even talk. You guys have got me all flustered now. Triple Play Fantasy is now an official affiliate to Monkey Knife Fight, the fastest growing sports betting site in the United States. Use promo code Triple Play and get up to $50 of your deposit match when you become a new user and you use that code. Our question this week, which quarterback in the league tips the most for their haircuts? So this is a Brad question. So Jacob, you're the guest. I'll go to you unless you don't have one in mind, and then I'll go to one of them first.
I have to guess which NFL player tips the most for their haircuts.
Which one do you think would tip the most for their haircut?
Oh, man.
Is it quarterback or is it player?
It's quarterback. So
Okay.
Which quarterback? Okay, I'm glad that we at least brought it down a little bit. I'm trying to think of like who has a real dope fade going. You know what? I think I'll say this. I think it's got to be someone with a little bit of a high maintenance look, right? So I think people are going to gravitate to a guy like a Trevor Lawrence or someone who's got the flow. But as someone
he doesn't cut
myself, that's what I'm saying. Like you don't have to trim that much. Like there's a lot less work going on. So I think like Trey Lance is one that I'm thinking of just off the top of my head because he's got the fade going up here, and then he's got it like popped up here. I think like there's a little bit more at play there. So that's the my guess. I'm sure there's way better answers out there that people.
David, I'm going Patrick Mahomes because it's sort of becoming his signature, and he also has to make up for the moral failings of the rest of the team. So he's doing that bit by bit by tipping large at the barbershop.
Are we gonna ever escape this? Probably not.
I don't know. Maybe if you ran your team right.
I'll throw it out there. I think Jalen Hurts. I think gets the most. Jalen Hurts. You see the stuff that like the patterns he gets in his hair.
Oh, that's true.
He's swagged out, but these people are on rookie contracts. You got to think of someone that's already made bang.
Lay off our Chiefs, John. Jesus.
No, man. I used to work as a golf club and washer at a couple of golf clubs. When I worked at the like ritziest one in the city, nobody fucking tipped at all. Whereas when I was working at like a middle class club, that's when everybody was giving you the tips. I think once these people get rich, all of a sudden they got no more time left for their hairdressers. I think the rookie contract people, they're still a member of the common people. You know, they still relate to the hairdressers. They know what's up.
Yeah, so that makes my answer even better. Eric, do you have a better one than Jalen Hurts?
I don't know if I have a better one. The first person that came to me was Matthew Stafford. Like, used to have really long hair.
What?
Now it's shorter.
Yeah, it's like he goes to supercuts.
Yeah, he's got the flow down. He's a very charitable guy. He's going to a new city, so he probably wants to impress. I don't know. I just think Matthew Stafford is a good tipper.
I wish we went to me last.
I think Matthew Stafford actually probably does tip a lot because if he goes to get a haircut with his wife's going to refuse to put the mask on when she enters. She's going to cause a big kerfuffle. And then Matthew, he's more of an amiable guy, so he's going to come in, hey, I'm sorry.
Nope.
I'm sorry about Kelly. She caused quite a stir. Here's 100.
No one has like revamped their like how hyped they are, like their PR or whatever, like Matthew Stafford has ever since he's been traded. Didn't hear that he was that good until he got traded.
I
know. Look at that. Our feed is being interrupted. We're gonna finish up really quick with our last segment of the night, and it's going to be our game of the week. John, I made sure to cut it off so that way we wouldn't be copyrighted.
We already have the community flag from your little football intro thing.
But it's Gardner. Gardner Minshew was a good one. We could have.
That's a great answer.
Oh, man,
that was a good one.
He pays extra for the stash too, probably.
Chris is a triple play member, so I'm not surprised by that one. All right, so our game of the week. Brad again did the game this week as well, so he texted.
That means it's going to be like 2 minutes.
It is real quick, but that's fine. We want to make sure it's quick so we can get out of here for the super fantasy.
How do you spell Matthew Stafford?
So they're playing the game. Where are they now? So I've got 7 players here. We might shorten it real quick. You're going to tell me where this player is right now, which team they play for. So pretty simple enough.
Simple enough.
All right. We're going to start up with Jacob first. Blaine Gabbert.
He's playing for the Bucs.
Doc.
He's a Buccaneer.
John?
Yeah, why not? 3 Buccaneers.
All right. And 3 points. 1 for each of you. Nice job. Number 2, Jacoby Brissett. And we are starting with Doc. And Doc. John.
He's on the Fins, right?
The Fins. What do you think, Jacob?
Yeah, he's definitely for the Dolphins.
You guys are both 2 for 2. Let's go to number 3. We've got Mike Glennon. And we're going to start with you, John. Or no, I'm sorry. You just start. We'll start with Jacob.
Oh, shoot. Shoot, I don't actually know. I'll say the Jaguars. I don't think he's there anymore.
John?
He just looks like he's on the Bengals.
All right, and I will give Doc is a big X. The correct answer is Mike Glennon is on the Giants.
Oh, shoot. Darn.
All right, so Doc, you pretty much are out now. Well, I guess you could hop back in if you want.
Wait, don't I have two?
You have
Did
0.
Yeah, no, he has 2. He got the first 2.
Okay.
How many did I miss?
He just missed 1. We got
Okay, nobody got it. It
number
sounds
4,
like a minute.
Number 4, starting with you, Doc, Jeff Driscoll.
Jeff Driscoll. Broncos.
John?
I was going to say Broncos as well.
Jacob?
I actually think he's on the Texans.
Jacob, a big ding for you. You got it. He is on the Houston Texans. We've got our 5th one, AJ McCarron. And I believe we are starting now with Doc. I'm losing track of
I just started.
Okay, John.
Jets.
Jacob.
Man. Bills?
Doc.
Browns.
Incorrect all around. It is the Atlanta Falcons. He's the backup for Atlanta.
Way to go, AJ.
We've got last 2 left, starting with Jacob. Blake Bortles.
Oh, he's on the Green Bay Packers.
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 That is correct all around. Last one. I didn't even.
Hello.
This is the only one actually I didn't know. Trevor Siemian. Where is he now? Doc.
Ravens.
John.
This is a trick question. He never left. He's still on the Broncos as like a 4th stringer.
That would be hilarious if that was the case. Jacob.
Oh, I don't know. I guess I hope that they're wrong, and then that means I win. I'll say that he's on. Jets. I don't know.
He is on the New Orleans Saints.
Wow.
He's I guess their 3rd string quarterback.
They drafted Ian Book too.
They have 4th string quarterback.
Oh my gosh.
Trevor Siemian. I believe I'm not your mother, so I didn't.
Okay, so then the real answer is he's going to be on like the BC Lions in a couple weeks.
Well, I think the winner of this game is Jacob. So he gets the
Jeff Driscoll. Jeff Driscoll, my guy.
He gets the win.
He's
He's
athletic,
1-0.
Jeff Driscoll.
He is 1-0 in the triple play games. There is no 3-time winners so far. So he is on his way at 1-0. But at that, I want to say, Jacob, thanks so much for coming on the show, man. It was an absolute blast having you on the show tonight. I love the negativity towards the Raiders. Really loved having you, man.
Thanks for chiming in for how much the Chiefs are degenerates.
Yeah, I mean, like I'm a big fan of, the rule of law, and I'm not a fan of 4-6-9 running backs. So that's where I end up. I end up chirping Josh Jacobs and I chirp felons. This was very, very fun. Super happy you guys invited me on. I look for pretty much any opportunity to chirp the Raiders because all they do is take draft picks that I hate, except for Bryan Edwards, of course, who I love. And so I always enjoy it.
Ironically, he'll be a better real receiver than he will be a fantasy receiver ever.
You don't know that. What if he's why? He has so many predictive metrics for
John,
fantasy.
we got to get out of it because the Super Fantasy Bros are trying to come on. So,
all right.
but Jacob you're awesome, man.
We'll take this offline.
Yeah. Can you please make sure you plug all the great work that you're doing?
Yeah, absolutely. So thanks, first of all, for the big introduction, for having me on. You can find me on Twitter, FF_RTDB. You can find me every Tuesday night, like, for instance, in 1 hour with Shane and Chase for Dynasty Intervention on Join Our Circle _. You can find me on Fridays, co-host in the Full Tilt Dynasty podcast with Tom and Billy. That's at Dynasty Tilt. And you can find all of my written work at Player Profiler, at RotoUnderworld. My most recent piece was regarding the running back dead zone and best ball, and I'm going to have a new series coming out on some lessons to learn and unlearn for DFS tournament players doing best ball tournaments right now. So a lot of fun stuff happening for the rest of the summer. Thanks so much for having me on. And for those who enjoyed, make sure to tune in. Join Our Circle. We'll be on in just less than an hour with Shane and Chase and David Gauthieri to break down the AFC North.
Awesome. Again, a great guy. Loved having you on the show. We'll definitely need to have you back because this was an absolute blast. Next week, we're going to be diving into our NFC North to finish out our division previews with Connor Conman of the Dynasty Nerds for what is sure to be a fun show. Until then, everyone, stay safe, go draft a best ball, and we're going to make like a bread truck and haul